Good evening, everyone. I am Ambica Shyam from Go Online Trainings. I am a senior data engineer working in a software company. I have 8+ years of experience in IT industry. I am a certified Snowflake developer. I am going to teach you AWS Snowflake. Here are the topics I am going to cover for the day in AWS Snowflake. Introduction to Snowflake. What is architecture? What are the key concepts? Editions of Snowflake. What is a virtual warehouse in Snowflake? What are tables, views, and external tables? What are the prerequisites for this course? What are the eligibilities? What is the scope of this course and duration of the course? So these are the topics I am going to cover for the day. Shall we start? Introduction to Snowflake. Basically, Snowflake runs completely on cloud infrastructure. All components of Snowflake service other than optional command line clients. Example, SnowSQL. Drivers. Example, ODBC and JDBC drivers. And connectors. Example for connectors are Python native connectors. Other than this, basically, Snowflake runs in public cloud infrastructures. Snowflake uses virtual compute instances for its compute needs. What are compute needs? Snowflake does some computations on the data, whatever we are going to provide. For this computation, it is going to maintain some virtual compute instances and a storage device for persistent storage of data. As it is Snowflake is a cloud-based data warehouse. It has to store the data. For that, it is going for a storage service. And it is also performing computations for us. It is going to process the data, whatever we are going to provide. Clear? Now, coming to the architecture of Snowflake. VPC, Virtual Private Cloud. Snowflake architecture has got 3 layers in it. Number 1, cloud services, query processing, and database storage. Cloud services is going to provide authentication and access control. Whenever you are going to log into the Snowflake, this cloud service is going to do the authentication and it is going to check your access control with the Snowflake. Number 2, query processing. It is going to have number of virtual warehouses. These virtual warehouses going to take care of the data, what you are going to provide, and it is going to process those data using the Snowflake queries. Database storage. Database storage is nothing but whatever the data we are going to provide, it is going to store the data. So this is the architecture of the Snowflake. In this architecture, number 1, the database storage. To go in detail about the database storage, what are the things we are going to learn? How Snowflake is going to organize the data. How it is going to store the data in an organized way. How it is going to compress the data. How it is going to keep the metadata of the table. And how it is going to maintain the statistics of the data. These are the details we are going to learn in detail in database storage. Coming to statistics, what are the statistics can be performed on the data? We have to find out what are the distinct columns and distinct values we are going to have in a table. We have to check what are the null records and not null records we are going to have in the table and how the data is getting distributed in the table. All these topics comes under the statistics of the data. Next comes query processing. How the Snowflake is going to process the queries. How they are going to allocate the queries to the virtual warehouse and how the virtual warehouse is going to take care of this processing. Next comes cloud services. Cloud services takes care of the authentication and access controls to the user. The first layer of the Snowflake is cloud. Next is query processing. Next is database storage. Now, coming to the key concepts of the Snowflake. These are the very important concepts we are going to learn in detail with the live scenarios, with the project scenarios. Okay. First comes scalability. As Snowflake has got a virtual warehouse for the query performance, whenever the data availability is high, it has to scale up the warehouse. Scale up means it has to increase the number of warehouse to process the data. Whenever the data is low, it has to scale down the virtual warehouse. That time it has to do the scale down process. So the Snowflake has got the important feature of scalability, which does the automatic scaling up and scaling down of the virtual warehouses for query processing. Number 2, cloning. Cloning is nothing but we are going to have the copy of the table. So we can have the copy of the Snowflake database, Snowflake table, and Snowflake schema. Number 3, time travel. For example, I am working with my colleague. We are doing some testing of data. Accidentally, someone in my team has deleted my data, which is very important for my unit testing. I want to retrieve those data from the Snowflake table. Snowflake has got an important feature called time travel. Using this time travel, I can go back to the past 7 days and maybe my data is available within 1 or 2 days so that I can retrieve the data that has got deleted. Now, I'm able to retrieve the data and store it back in the original table, and I'm able to do the unit testing successfully. This is the way how time travel performs the basic, very important operation in Snowflake. Next comes fail-safe. When the time travel period is over, Snowflake has got another important feature, the fail-safe period. In that period, you can retrieve the data which is very important for you. This comes after the time travel period is over and then the fail-safe period comes. Data sharing. I could see new joiners in the company. Initially, they won't be having the access to the Snowflake data, Snowflake table, database, and schema. Here comes the 2 roles, producers and consumers. What producers does, they create the sharing of the data in their Snowflake database, in their Snowflake table, and in the Snowflake schema. And they share the data with the consumers who are the joiners in the organization. So using these roles, the joiners will use the data for their processing. Once the processing is done and their work is done, their privileges will be reverted back. So that is what we cover in the data sharing, which is very important in Snowflake. Next comes caching. Caching has got 3 types in Snowflake. We will be going in detail to study about that. Query cache, metadata cache, and disk cache. Here, the mostly widely used concept is query cache. For example, in a Snowflake session, I am going to run a set of data, set of queries. After some time, I want to rerun those queries in the same session. This time, the query cache is going to help me to cache the results instead of going to the table and getting the results from the scratch. So this query cache is going to fetch the results from the previous run. This is called caching in Snowflake. Then comes availability of the data. As it is a public cloud data warehouse, my data is highly available anytime to my client. It is not like on premises. Whenever the manual person is available, human being is available to to operate on the data. This is already available in the public cloud data warehouse. So that's why nowadays clients are more preferable with the Snowflake as the data availability is high in the public cloud infrastructure. I hope you got some glimpse of these key concepts of the Snowflake. Editions of the Snowflake. Before working into the Snowflake, we should be aware of like whatever the editions we can use, which are available free for the students or free for the users and which are payable and which is for the organization and which is for the business purpose. For this purpose, we are going to know what are the editions. In standard edition, anyone can register themselves in the standard edition. It's a free of cost. And the validity period will be 30 days trial so that they can use of the Snowflake features and they can use the trial session to learn the basic concepts of the Snowflake. In the enterprise edition, this comes a free cost as well as the payable package. Mostly it will be adopted by the enterprise people, organizations and firms who are going to use the features of the Snowflake. In this, time travel is enabled for 90 days. Business critical. In business critical, other than the standard edition and enterprise edition, it is used for a highly performable data. They are used by the high business organization who are giving most care about their data for their business purpose. They don't want to lose the data at any cost, and they want the data to be highly available in the public cloud infrastructure so that they don't want to go for the standard and enterprise edition to take risk on their data. Those people will go for the business critical. And virtual private network is, I am going to have my own Snowflake. Even the business critical sometimes maybe in a need to share the data with another organization, but virtual private network is completely dedicated for me. I am the individual user or individual organization. I want a separate CPU. For example, in my house, I have a separate PC for me. I have a separate processor for me. It's dedicated to me, so nobody can share it. That is the way the virtual private network is going to handle. So that by using this virtual private network, there is a high availability of data, 100% of chances you are not going to lose any data. Your business will be in a high demand and your progress will be very high. That's why these are the difference between the 4 types of the editions in the Snowflake. So before getting into the Snowflake, we should be aware of it. Next comes virtual warehouses. Warehouses are required for queries as well as DML operations, data manipulation language, and including loading data into the tables. Warehouses can be started and stopped at any time. They can also be resized at any time, even while running. To accommodate the need for more or less compute resources based on the type of the operations being performed by the warehouse. Other than this theoretical, if I say it practically, definitely you can understand. Basically, warehouse is a CPU which is going to perform the analysis on my data using the Snowflake queries. It is going to help me to create the table. It is going to perform the DML operations and DDL operations of the SQL. DDL means creation of the table, dropping of the table, altering the table. Data manipulation language means you are going to select the data from the table, you are going to update the data in the table, and you are going to delete the data from the table. CRUD operation. All these operations can be done in the Snowflake virtual warehouses. As it is a cloud infrastructure, you can start this warehouse and you can stop this warehouse manually, and you can set it automatically as well. While we are working on the virtual warehouse, you will come to know the data load is very high. I'm not able to use the extra small warehouses to do this operation. In the warehouses, we have different sizes: small, extra small, medium, large, and extra large. So when my data is not able to handle in this extra small virtual warehouse, I have to resize the virtual warehouse to medium or small or medium so that my data can be handled in a better way. That is what it is given. They can be resized at any time, even while running that warehouse, to accommodate the need for the compute resource. So this is what about the virtual warehouse, primary concept of the Snowflake. This is what going to be the CPU of the computer. Snowflake table structure. All data in Snowflake is stored in database tables, logically structured as a collection of columns and rows. To best utilize Snowflake tables, particularly large tables, it is helpful to have an understanding of the physical structure behind the logical structure. What exactly it implies? The logical structure of the Snowflake table will be having columns and rows. But when we are going to grow the table in a higher level, your table is going to accommodate more number of data. You have to increase the size of the table. It will become the large table. That time, you have to understand the physical structure of the table. And then you come to the logical structure. By seeing the rows and columns in the tabular format, you can understand what it is and how the data is organized. Right? But physically, how it is going to store the data. And then comes how the logically it has been derived. So these are the important concepts while designing the table structure you have to understand in Snowflake. External tables. Snowflake supports the concept of an external table. They are read-only and their files are stored in the external stage. To read the data from the external tables, you no need to load the data into the Snowflake table. The external stage can be the AWS S3 bucket. From the S3 bucket itself, you can directly read the data, but it is read-only. To do this operation, you no need to store the data into the Snowflake table. Views. A Snowflake view is nothing but the replication of the table. Instead of going and querying the table every time, you are going to create a view for the table so that you can refer the view every time instead of going to the original source table. A view allows the result of the query to be accessed as if it were a table. You are going to consider from this table, I'm going to see the data. For that, I'm creating a view. That's all. So whenever the source table is updated, it will be reflected in the views. For this course, what are the prerequisites? Everyone should have the basic knowledge of SQL. This will be provided along with the course. How we'll use a create statement in the SQL, how to create a table, how to alter the table, how to delete the data from the table, how to drop a table, how can I do the retrieve operation using the select statements, how can I update the data in the table using the update statement, how can I delete the data from the table using the delete statements. So these are the basic SQL stuffs we should be aware before getting into the Snowflake. Number 2, data warehousing. You should be aware of what is data warehousing. Why is Snowflake is considered to be the cloud data warehouse? In data warehouse, what exactly we do? And then you will understand how it is getting performed in cloud-based architecture. Number 3, you should be aware of database and relational database. Generally, database is help us to organize the data, store the data, so that we can retrieve the information in the structural format. In relational database, we'll be having an entity relationship models. You'll be having a base table and you'll be having a child table. How the child table is going to depend on the base table with connecting to a particular column as a primary key. What are primary keys and foreign keys in a table? How can we create a table with the primary key and foreign key so that the second table is going to be dependent on the primary table connecting to this key? So these are the some important concepts we should be aware of before getting into the Snowflake, before learning Snowflake. Eligibility. Who can learn this course? College students who wants to upgrade themselves in outstanding, like in the market, up to the trend of the market, what the companies are going to recruit, exactly recruiting in which field, so that college students can upgrade themselves to this Snowflake so that they will be provided with a job opportunity at the earliest. Freshers who has just completed the college. Experienced candidates, whomever already worked in a Python environment, whomever already working in a software development, they can upgrade themselves with this AWS Snowflake so that the opportunities are more to explore. Willing to learn AWS-based database. We have so many AWS-based courses, right? So Amazon AWS is providing us so many technologies. In that, Snowflake is one of the technologies which supports a cloud-based data warehousing. Whomever willing to learn this, they can go ahead. And whomever taken break in the career, they can definitely learn this. They can upgrade themselves in the development and they can apply for this kind of roles. And who wanted to become an IT developer, software developer, definitely they can enroll themselves in this course. Scope. Basically, Snowflake projects are highly used in abroad. Nowadays, it is highly booming in India as well. Competitor of the firms that supports the traditional warehousing. Snowflake is a competitor for the organization who supports the traditional data warehousing. People don't have any project experience in Snowflake. After learning this course, they can apply for the job and definitely they are assured that they will be earning 6 to 7 lakhs per annum without experience. With experience, definitely they can go for 10 to 12 lakhs per annum with the reputed organization. Basically, they will recruit the Snowflake developer as a data engineering and data engineer and data analyst roles. And once they have mastered themselves in Snowflake with the queries and they are good in understanding the Snowflake architecture and they are good in cloud-based data warehousing, definitely you can go ahead with Snowflake certification, which has got a core Snowflake SnowPro core or certification, Snowflake SnowPro advanced certification, and many levels of certification of there. If you are really mastered in Snowflake and their respective tools, you can go ahead and work on certification of the Snowflake. So I would recommend, as a data engineer, I have got 3 to 4 years of experience in working in the Snowflake background, and I have got a decent experience in data engineering. I would definitely recommend, please learn this technology, upgrade yourself and get your placed in a very good organization as a software developer. Duration of the course will be, if you are going to attend the class every day, it will be for 2 months. If you are going to take the weekend sessions, so you'll be getting only the weekend hours. So this course will be for 3 to 4 months. So far, whatever the agenda I have given for the day, everything I have explained. Once starting the course, you will go more in detail. You have to work with me. You have to understand how the Snowflake is designed. And whatever the assignments I'm going to give you, you have to work with me. Then one day you will get the real practical knowledge in the Snowflake. In general, whatever the things we are learning, we have to work on it. We have to understand it properly. Then only you can learn technologies. It is not only for Snowflake, it is applicable to all the technologies I would recommend. Hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.